Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to chat Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry, because if you've been living under a rock, Games Workshop have released a new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry. Now this is very much a update to the existing rules, because let's be honest, for those of us that play Warcry and enjoy Warcry, this is a really solid game system. This is probably, I would say, my favourite Games Workshop game in its entirety. I absolutely love Warcry. People have seen plenty of Warcry stuff on the channel, and I really want to start delving into more and more of the different sort of ways to play, with catacombs and narrative play added soon as well. But today, we're going to chat about 12 big changes for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry, because there are slight changes to a couple of the rules, some new mechanics added, but for the most part, this is really just an update of the old existing rules, tidying things up, making some things work the way maybe they should have worked. And so we're going to be doing a lot of Warcry content in the next couple of weeks as we look at all the warbands that come out, start doing more Start Collecting videos and stuff like that. But let's look at these 12 big changes to begin with and chat about them all. And so, number one, you cannot fly and carry treasure. This, I think, is a really solid change. Flyers definitely had an advantage when they can come in and pick up treasure. Now, obviously, already beasts and stuff couldn't carry treasure anyway, but definitely removing from fly, I think having to keep things on the ground to carry treasure makes a lot of sense. Maybe, carrying treasure and flying isn't too much of an issue when it's like a Vargeist doing it, but definitely, it might seem a little bit silly when it's something, smaller carrying it that can fly. But I really like this change. This just means you can't fly and carry treasure though. It would certainly not stop something like a Kharadron Overlord's Engine Rigger flying, or rather moving. They just wouldn't get the fly ability. They would just have to move along the ground, meaning they'd have to climb and all of that sort of stuff to carry the treasure along. Number two, when carrying treasure, you have -2 movement, though to a minimum of 3. So two things in this. First of all, I like the idea of treasure slowing you down. We've been playing a lot of Moonstone, the miniature game, and this actually happens in that game where you lose movement if you are carrying the Moonstone, which is essentially, their objectives, their treasure for the game. It's a really cool mechanic. It means, you can go pick it up with your little fast-moving scouting dudes, but they may not be your toughest, and so will actually be slower to get back to your line, so easier to pick off for your opponent. I like the reduction to a minimum of 3 in this. In Moonstone, everything has standard movement, and so it's not really affected. But obviously, in Warcry, we have movement of different values. I like that it will reduce them to a minimum of 3, meaning nothing's going to, be moving 1 or 2 inches a turn. Number 3, you cannot start a move action when engaged. You must first make a disengage action. This is really cool. This is something similar in another game I play where Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. You have to make disengages before you can make an action. This essentially stops you, from being able to move out then shoot someone, or move and charge. Means you disengage then move, or disengage and charge. You won't get that extra attack out of disengaging. You won't get an offensive bonus for disengaging. This is where your doubles and triples for those movements and extra attacks and stuff like that will come in handy and be really useful to make you able to use abilities like this. Number 4, list building. You can now take 3 hero rune marks when building a list. I think this definitely opens up a ton of different options, especially for the non-Warcry warband specific stuff, for those sort of armies that want to take, a few heroes, but also for Warcry warbands, able to bring in allies and take, a couple of extra hero rune marks on top, or being able to run, double of your leader if you've got something really useful that puts out some nice buffs. And then you've also got 1 monster and 3 thralls, and this is across all modes of play now. Before, you definitely could build in narrative and open, you could sort of build how you wanted to, but in match play it was very different. You were sort of restricted to certain ways. This, I think, is a big and positive change for building a warband. Number 5, twists are no longer used in match play. I don't really mind this at all. We probably didn't use twists an awful lot in our own match play games anyway. I think they just made stuff really random. They were definitely best in open play and narrative play, where they sort of are telling part of the story. In match play, you're just wanting a nice, simple basic sort of game. Twist definitely sort of sometimes they added to it. Sometimes they, you know, made warbands particularly better than the other one. It could tilt something in a game in one player's favor. But this is, you know, just how they're sort of going with match play across all their systems, where they take out all these little random little side effects. Number 6, reactions. These are really cool. So generally, these are used when you're attacked in some way, when your opponent's activating a model and you're allowed to do something in return, taking up an action of one of your models. So you will use, you know, one of your reactivations, and so one of your activations, you will get your model 2 actions. You can use one of those actions to make a reaction during your opponent's activation, which is pretty cool. I think this definitely sort of adds another layer to the game and will be really interesting to see how this goes. Number 7, you now get cover if you are 2 inches higher up on a barricade or something than your opponent, where before it was 3 inches. And by the same point, falling damage now happens at 2 inch rather than 3 as well. So all that sort of, you know, height stuff in the game is now 2 inches of level rather than 3. Number 8, battle groups are now equal divides. So your shield, dagger, and hammer, all of that, you must have equal amount of models as much as possible in a warband. So a 10 model warband would now be 3, 3, 4, where before you would have to have half your models in your shield and then at least a third in each of the others. It's now just an even split, so there's no sort of janking around with different numbers, and all of that. You have to just have it as equal as possible, which can mean you have more in your dagger or more in your shield or more in your hammer. You can have that 4 wherever you want it to be out of those 10 models, but you couldn't say have 2, 3, 5 or something like that. Number 9, ranged attacks have now been specified in the game rules properly. So they are now attacks with a range of 3 inch or more. Regardless of what it is, that is a ranged attack now, whether it's from a whip, a crossbow, a giant bow at the back of the field. That is what a ranged attack is. This is a nice cleanup. There was always a lot of the cards specifying, you know, what's range, what's combat, and a lot of weapons sort of working weirdly. But this is nice, good cleanup of a rule. Number 10, you can no longer shoot into combat as well. I think this is a really positive change. This also means, you know, things like whips and stuff that have that 4 inch range can't be activated into a combat, so they can't hit out of range, so they need to go into the 2 inch range. Now, it'll be interesting to see how whips and stuff like that will work over the course of different models getting rules changes and how we're going to see them work, but I think this is overall a positive change for the game. No shooting in combat. I like this. I wish more Warhammer games would take this as how it should work. 11, Destiny levels are replaced by a renown system, which can give your heroes extra reactions and also level them up as well. This is pretty cool stuff. I like the ability to get extra reactions in this narrative play. Now, note this is for narrative play because this is, you know, Destiny replacing renown. You won't get this in match play or open play or standalone games, but really cool stuff, you know, changing with a more advanced sort of mechanic system, getting more abilities and stuff out of that, I really, really like. And lastly, first of all, number 12, cavalry can climb stairs, and also in that sort of talk, when you make a full test, you have to do so now if you're attacked within half an inch of a stair. Regardless, if you're attacked, your opponent's trying to hit you, you may have to take a full test. Regardless now, if your opponent rolls a crit or not, doesn't matter. They just have to attack you and make an attack and try and push you off, which I think is really cool. It gives, you know, a little bit of extra value to that, of being able to, you know, just simply roll lots of dice and attack your opponent and make them take a full test. But that is a bunch of changes for Warcry. What are your thoughts on all the changes to Warcry? I can't wait to get some battle reports happening on the channel and show off the new addition to everyone. So let's see how we go. Can't wait to try this out. We'll be looking at all the warbands throughout the course of the week and indeed getting some games up for you to have a look at. That's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, drop us a comment down below in the comment section and let us know what you enjoyed about the video and what you'd like to see more of on the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here we have at Cinderful Gaming, you can do so on our Discord server, which is linked in the video's description. Also linked in the video's description is our Patreon and YouTube members, where you can go to help support the channel and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. As a special thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons: Christian Weir, Soren, Greenskins Gaming, Kenny Lower, Outer on Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek, and Giappy390, and to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Ronya, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, and Monty's Tabletop Terrain. And lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now, everyone.